The Good Bargain by Brothers Grimm. Brought to you by TellStory.net, stories from around the world. Once there was a simple peasant who took his cow to market and sold her for 7 shiny coins called thalers. Whistling merrily, he set off for home, jingling the coins in his pocket. As he walked past a pond, he heard frogs croaking from the water. To his ears, it sounded like they were saying,
Eight, eight, eight.
You silly creatures. You're talking nonsense. I received $7, not 8.
but the frogs kept up their croaking.
Eight, eight, eight.
The peasant grew angry.
If you won't believe me, I'll prove it to you.
He took out his money and counted the 7 thalers, one by one. Still the frogs continued.
Eight, eight, eight.
So, you think you know better than I do? Then count it yourselves.
And he threw all the money into the water. He stood there, waiting for the frogs to finish counting and return his coins. But the frogs just kept croaking, and they didn't throw the money back. Finally, as evening came, the peasant had to go home. He cursed the frogs soundly and trudged home empty-handed and in a sour mood. Some time later, the peasant bought another cow and slaughtered her. He figured if he sold the meat at a good price, he could earn back what he'd lost to the frogs. He loaded the meat onto his back and headed to town. Just outside the town gate, a pack of dogs gathered around him. A large greyhound at the head of the pack jumped and barked.
Bow wow! Bow wow!
Yes, I understand. You're saying bow wow because you want some meat, but I'd be in a fine state if I gave it all to you.
The greyhound kept barking.
Bow wow! Bow wow!
Will you promise not to eat it all? And will you be responsible for your companions?
Bow wow!
Well, if you insist, I know your master, the butcher. I'll leave the meat with you, but I must have my money in 3 days, or you'll be sorry.
He unloaded the meat and turned toward home, leaving the dogs barking loudly behind him. 3 days passed, and the peasant waited for his payment, but no one came.
No one can be trusted these days.
He complained, and he marched to the butcher's shop to demand his money. The butcher thought it was a joke, but the peasant insisted.
Didn't your big dog bring home a whole slaughtered cow 3 days ago?
The butcher grew angry, grabbed a broomstick, and chased the peasant out of his shop.
There must be justice somewhere,
said the peasant, and he went straight to the royal palace. He was brought before the king, who sat on his throne with his daughter beside him. The king asked what wrong had been done to him.
Your Majesty, the frogs stole my money, the dogs took my meat, and the butcher paid me with a stick instead of coins.
And he told the whole story from beginning to end. At this, the king's daughter burst into loud laughter. The king turned to the peasant and said,
I cannot make your troubles right, but I shall give you my daughter as your wife. In all her life, she has never laughed until this moment. I promised her to the man who could make her laugh, so you can thank your good fortune.
Oh no, Your Majesty. I don't want her. I already have one wife at home, and she's more than enough for me. Whenever I go home, it's as if I have a wife standing in every corner.
The king grew angry.
You are an impudent fellow.
Alas, Your Majesty, what can you expect from an ox but beef?
The king paused, then said,
Very well. You shall have a different reward. Leave now, but return in 3 days, and 500 coins shall be counted out for you.
As the peasant left through the palace gate, a guard stopped him.
You made the princess laugh. You must have received something good.
Indeed, 500 coins will be counted out to me in 3 days.
Listen, share some with me. What would you do with all that money?
Since it's you, you may have 200. Come to the king in 3 days and have it counted out.
A merchant who had been standing nearby overheard everything. He hurried after the peasant and grabbed his coat.
What good fortune! Let me exchange it for smaller coins. What use are large coins to you?
Very well. You can have 300. Give me the smaller coins now, and in 3 days the king will pay you.
The merchant was delighted and quickly handed over the sum in small, worn coins. 3 days later, following the king's command, the peasant appeared before him.
Remove his coat. He shall have his 500.
Alas, they're not mine anymore. I gave 200 to the guard and 300 to the merchant, so nothing remains for me.
Just then, the guard and the merchant entered, demanding what the peasant had promised them. They received their payment, but not in coins. Instead, they got 500 blows carefully counted out. The guard bore it stoically, for he'd been in the army, but the merchant cried out pitifully. The king had to laugh at the peasant. When his anger subsided, he said,
Since you lost your reward before you even received it, I shall replace it. Go into my treasure chamber and take as much money as you please.
The peasant didn't need to be told twice. He stuffed his big pockets with as much gold as they would hold. Afterward, he went to an inn to count his fortune. The merchant had crept after him and heard him muttering,
That king has cheated me after all. If he'd counted it himself, I'd know exactly how much I have. Now, how can I tell if I grab the right amount?
The merchant thought to himself,
How terrible! He's speaking disrespectfully of His Majesty. I'll report him and get a reward, and he'll be punished.
When the king heard this accusation, he fell into a rage and sent the merchant to fetch the peasant immediately. The merchant found the peasant and said,
You must come before the king at once, just as you are.
I know better than that. First, I'll have a new coat made. Do you think a man with pockets full of gold should appear before the king in these rags?
The merchant, fearing the king's anger would cool and he'd lose his reward, said,
Out of pure friendship, I'll lend you a fine coat for a little while.
The peasant agreed, put on the merchant's coat, and went with him to the palace. The king confronted the peasant with what the merchant had reported.
Oh, your majesty, everyone knows a merchant's word is worth nothing. Why, that rascal would even claim I'm wearing his coat.
What? That is my coat. I lent it to you out of pure friendship.
When the king heard this, he said,
Since the peasant has been so honest and straightforward so far, I believe him.
And he ordered the merchant paid out once more, in hard blows. The peasant walked home wearing the fine coat, his pockets heavy with gold, saying to himself with a grin,
This time I really made a good bargain.